most important thing that you have to decide right now is whether you are going to work with someone that believes addiction is a brain disorder or a spiritual disorder. And I'm talking about the underlying theme, right? The root. I'm not denying there are certain changes in our neurochemistry and with the neurotransmitters or with the hormones or the likes of the dopamines and stuff like that, right? Like, I'm not denying any of that. I'm just saying the underlying theme. What are you really working on? You have to decide who you work with. Because most people, they will treat it like a brain disorder. And I don't. I think it's a spiritual problem. And the difference here is that I think about everything that Western medicine talks about, Western medicine studies, and I incorporate that into my work, but I don't view it as the solution. And I don't think it's the solution. Actually, I know it's not the solution because I know it doesn't work for most people if you treat it as a brain disorder solely, right? And I'm talking about actual success, talking about long-term success here. Not talking about, short-term success, I stopped taking or using whatever, right? And this is success. No. I'm talking about actual proper integration into life, long-term success, happiness, all the stuff that's attached to you not living that lifestyle anymore. Living a life of purpose, having a vision, building a family, having the right relationships, living in the right environments, being healthy, like actually vibrant with energy. You're waking up in the morning with energy and you like to wake up, right? Like you don't want to stay in bed because you're tired and all that shit that you've been experiencing for the last years, right? So that's what I'm talking about. True success, all the pillars, right? All the pillars, not just one, not just the fucking drug, and being free from that. True freedom. And that's what's lacking in most of these programs and in most of these methods and trainings out there, and what doctors are pushing and therapists are pushing. It's because they just look at the brain all the time, and they're missing all the connections to all the different parts of the body and the systems that we have, and the environments that we live in, and actual life, right? Because you want to live life. You don't want to be fucking recovering from some substance all of your life, right? Like, what the hell is that even? Why would you call yourself a recovering addict? So fucking stupid. You keep yourself stuck in that identity, and with the next crisis, you will relapse. There's nothing more stupid than that. And believe me, you can only reach true freedom if you detach from that identity. Like, I don't even think about drinking anymore. I don't even think about doing a line anymore. I don't even think about smoking weed anymore. I don't even think about taking painkillers anymore. It doesn't even cross my mind for 1 second, because I'm so fucking fulfilled with what I've built that I wouldn't jeopardize any of that with any of these substances. No fucking way. And I'm not saying there's no place for painkiller, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, if you don't have it under control, if you're using it to fill a void, right? If you're using it to escape, if you're using it to numb yourself on a daily basis in combination with alcohol and all that stuff that you've been doing, right? I'm talking about that. I'm not denying medical perspectives. I'm not denying research. I'm not denying any of that, because there's, I get into these discussions with these old timers in the space, the so-called veterans in the addiction space, and they try to, educate me all the time. And I'm like, dude, you can try to educate me as much as you want, but, I know what works and I know what doesn't. And I don't care about your short-term success with your patients, because I know down the line they will have a problem if they're not filling that spiritual void properly, if they're not set for life properly, if they don't enjoy life properly, if you haven't given them the right guidance how to live life, right? And build a proper foundation of a vibrant body where energy flows, where it's not stuck, right? That's what they don't understand. And I try to keep it civil and have like a normal discussion, but what they do in the end is they delete my comments, and then that's that. I'm not gonna engage further with that, because I see clearly they're limited in their ability to at least question the things that they think they're sure about. That's one thing that you can also start to practice is, what are the things where you're absolutely certain you're right? And question those and see what happens. That's a super interesting exercise. I do that quite often, like way more than a couple years ago, because it actually works, right? Like, why do you think you know a certain thing or a certain topic, like where you're sure about the outcomes, where you know exactly what you're talking about? Like, why are you actually sure about that? Question those, especially those I would question. Super interesting what comes up, because you find out, we're keeping ourselves in these loops, and we're, especially the monkey brain and the ego comes in there, right? And you see I'm digressing, that's how I like to do these videos, especially when they're longer and I'm driving and I have time, right? But the essence of this video was, you have to decide right now whether you want to work with someone that believes it's a spiritual problem that you have, or if it's a brain disorder that you have, where you have to take pills maybe, and there's certain things that happen in your brain they're irreversible, and you can only work on the symptoms and make those better, for example, right? It's just one angle. Addiction is a spiritual problem. I can guarantee you that. Doesn't matter what else, who else talks about that in a different manner. I know it's the case. It's one of these things that I know, and I questioned it a lot and many times, and I've lived through it. I've experienced it, and I know it with my clients, that the only way you can truly be free from the addiction in the long run and sustainably and holistically is if you work on it from a spiritual perspective. And that means that eventually you are in homeostasis as much as possible. Nobody is all the time, I'm not saying that. You're in homeostasis as much as possible. You're connected, you're grounded, you're calm and collected, and you have a relationship with God, right? With God. I'm not talking about the white bearded man in the sky, right? I think you know that by now. And once you're there, once you're able to meditate for a little bit in the morning, I'm not a master meditator either, but I practice, right? And that's what it's all about. I practice stillness. I sit with myself, and especially when you have ADHD, this is the only way. If you want to stay away from the pills, the only way, it's never the only way, but it's one of the best ways. Sit in stillness, regulation in the morning. The whole day is different, believe me. Like, I haven't touched a Ritalin or an Adderall in years, and I've never felt better, and I've never had better focus, and I've never, experienced more joy in my life. It's possible. You don't need to be on these pills. Don't fucking let anyone, tell you that. And again, I'm not healing you. You are healing yourself. That's why I'm guiding you. That's why I call myself a guide. I don't call myself a coach or teacher or any of the sorts, or a therapist, because I guide you. I guide you, and you will heal yourself, right? With the right guidance. And we're talking, where we're going to incorporate supplementation and detoxification, of course, right? Of course. It's all part of it. I'm not denying any of these things. We're not going to be sitting there and praying, just because I say it's an underlying spiritual problem. Still, everything else has to be incorporated. Everything else has to be worked on, right? Like, you have to get your dopamine intact, right? Like, you have to let your brain recover from all the damage over the years. But you have to give it the fuel and the space to do so, And that's where, medical research comes in, That's where these tools are right, and where they actually benefit ourselves, right? And our way of doing things in the recovery space, right? Like, it's crucial to know all of that, and to have looked through it, and to not deny any of that, because there's always a place for something, right? There's a place for ketamine when you're fucking in pain and in the hospital, right? But doing it like in the club is probably not the right application for it. You know? I was in so much pain 6-7 years ago. I had so much nerve pain. I was taking so many painkillers and none of them would work, because it was a nerve inflammation problem where, you know, at the root of the pain. And until we figured that one out, I was taking tilidines and like all these heavy opiates and way too much, you know, like double the maximum dosage per day, and nothing worked, right? And so weed was the only way for me to get a little bit of sleep. And boom, I was hooked on it. I smoked for like 2 years probably regularly, and it was a solution and a medication for me at that moment in time, right? And it was good for that reason, and it had a place for that reason. Until I was done with all the therapy and the physiotherapy and the osteopaths, you know, it took me a good solid 1.5 to 2 years to really get out of that spot, because they wanted to operate on me. They told me I need spine injury, it was a spine injury, and they told me I need a spine surgery. That's what I wanted to say. And so I denied that. I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to walk around with a metal plate in my spine for the rest of my life and be in pain and have, you know, painkillers next to my bed. I'm going to try differently. So I did, and it took a while. And, you know, people say, yeah, it costs you a lot of money. I'm like, yeah, well, whatever. Doesn't matter in that moment. You have to find a way to make it work, right? Because the worst solution is the easiest solution in that case. And all the specialists, believe me, I've been to all these specialists, because, you know, we have these connections back there, and I went to all of them. They all said that, yeah, you have to get the operation. It's the only way. It's too dangerous. And that's what I'm saying, you know, you have to be able to make your own decisions, and you have to trust your own gut instinct, and you have to trust your own ability to decide for yourself what is right for you. It's fucking difficult in these moments, especially when you're in so much pain and you think you have to trust that guy because he's a specialist, but like everything inside of me was saying no. And it still wasn't easy to say no to that decision, or to their advice, right? But I did it, you know? And I'm just trying to tell you here that you have to trust your own ability to decide for yourself. You know, this is the only way you'll be able to operate properly and to live life, you know, without these substances, is if you actually take back your power, right? Don't give any therapist or doctor the power to decide for you what you need, and, you know, what everything looks like in your life, what you're supposed to buy and all that shit, you know? That's also part of my program, because I try to, you know, give you the tools, and I try to show you how it's done, and I explain to you why certain things are done in a certain way, you know, as much as possible. There's certain things, you know, it would just be like way too much, but like the basics that you later on basically implement into your life that you're gonna do on a daily basis, you know, certain supplementation, certain lifestyle choices, all these things, I will show you how to do them and why they're important to do, and then it will eventually just become normal to you. It will become, you know, the thing like brushing your teeth, taking a certain supplement, you know, 3 times a week or every second day, or, you know, doing a certain practice in the morning and at night, you know. These things are important, especially when you have like a neurodivergence, you know, like they want to call it, like ADHD working in the background. You have to have these rituals. You have to give your body certain time frames that you work in and certain structures that you operate in, so your brain can actually slow down and focus, right? It's all about nervous system regulation. It's all it is in the end, you know. Your nervous system was in fight or flight for way too long, and it was slowly killing you. My adrenals, I had to work on them for like 2.5 years for them to recover from my lifestyle for almost 20 years. But I mean, what do you expect? You know, you have 2 years versus 20 years of destruction. You know, it's just 10%, right? Like, it's still not a lot. That's how magical the body is, how much power you have. 20 years of fucking, and I was going hard, you know, like, don't get me wrong, like, I was going hard on all aspects of life, right? Always pushing, always on the fast track. And in 2 years, like, I'm you know, I have better stats and I have better internal, you know, like, numbers, if you would say, you know, if you would call it, look at it from a medical perspective, you know, anything that you can put into some graph and into some number, I have better results than, you know, men that are 10 years younger than me. And it's just proper work with the right people, with the right doctors. You know, I've worked with really like absolute experts in each of these fields, and they're my mentors now, and they're my coaches, right? And that's basically all of that I pull into the programs that I built. Because I didn't, you know, study everything myself. It's impossible to do, especially when you work on, you know, detoxification and supplementation and getting the body back into balance. Like, it's impossible to learn that in just a few short years. Like, you have to really study this for a long time, and that's why you have to get, you know, teachers, and I have these, and that's how I learn. That's how I fast track my progress, right? And it's so crucial. But anyways, this is getting too long. I hope this gives a little bit of clarification in the way I think and in the way I operate and how I view your addiction. And just be hopeful. Don't let any motherfucker tell you that you're done, that you have to take pills for the rest of your life, you know, that you have to be on medication for the rest of your life, that brain damage in your prefrontal cortex is irreversible. All that bullshit. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to that. You can optimize as much as possible and it will be enough. Okay? You're not damaged. You're not fucking broken. You're not a retard. They pushed me to the sidelines all my life, you know. I like, you hyperactive, you're not supposed to be here. You're asking the wrong questions, shut the fuck up, go out of here, right? Like, kick me out of class, kick me out of kindergarten class even. You know, and then this creates these programs where you think that you don't fit in, right? And what happens? You escape. You escape into gaming, you escape into drugs, you escape into alcohol, you escape into substances. You look for places that are more interesting for you than this real life, right? So don't let anybody tell you that you don't have the power to change, because you have to. I'm the best example. Believe me, if I could do it, you can do it too. Be hopeful. Doesn't matter what you have, what addiction you have, we can work on it. There are certain things that I don't work on because I know it's not possible to work on them online. I will tell you that if you fill out that questionnaire. You know, I will say, look, I'm sorry, but this is not my field of expertise. I cannot touch that. And if I know somebody, especially, you know, I have contacts in the States and stuff. If I know somebody that works with that, I can guide you to them, right? But I will only start to work with you if I know I can help you. Okay? Don't think I will start work with you if I'm not certain that I can help you. Because that's a waste of my time, you know? My energy isn't infinite, and I give it my all, as you can maybe sense through these videos. I give it my all to help you if we start working together. And so I'm not gonna work with anyone where I'm certain that it won't be a success, you know, or at least sure, right? You can never be certain, because, you know, people can drop out. There can be circumstances in their lifestyle and in their life, you know, that take that power away from them for a certain period of time. Sometimes they come back after that, right? But like, only if you drop out once we've started is the only way you won't make it work. It's only if you drop out. If you stick with me, if you give me your trust, we will push through. It may take longer than you thought, probably will, but we'll be able to manage and we'll be able to get through it. Because it's just a matter of time and dedication and work, you know, and doing the right stuff at the right time, having the right guidance at the right time, not being alone in this, and not being stubborn that you maybe still are, and thinking that you can do it by yourself, because you can't. It's fucking difficult. It's gonna take you a couple years. You will still need to work with all these different people and all these different, you know, doctors and therapists. But that's not doing it alone anyways, right? That's just navigating it alone and still needing to get the help. Because it is multidimensional. It's a very complex topic that I'm talking about here. And so if you have any questions, reach out, you know, fill out that questionnaire, let me know in the chat that you did, and then we can hop on a call and discuss, you know, if we can help, or if I can help you, and we can work together, because we need to get along, right? Like, we'll be working together for weeks and months maybe, and so if we don't get along, I'm gonna have to decline, you know. It's just the way it is, because I'm not gonna drain my energy with, you know, with interactions that just take my energy, right? Like, I'm just gonna work with people that are worth my time, because I only have so much time, you know. I can start building an online program like everybody else does, and put different coaches in there and stuff, but it's not what I do. It's not how I operate, and that's why my time is finite, right? I have a family, all that good stuff. All right, reach out if you want to help. Reach out if you feel like it's a spiritual void in you that is present, that needs to be filled, and you're not fucking damaged in the brain. Reach out if you don't know how to solve this. Reach out if you hopeless at this moment, if you don't know how to get out of it. That's what I'm here for, okay? All right.